You're listening to ProCommunity, a Socius podcast, the show where online community meets business performance.
Welcome to episode number 5 of ProCommunity, the show where online community meets business performance. I'm Josh Paul, and you can see all the ProCommunity episodes at socius.com. You can also subscribe to the show as an audio podcast on iTunes. I'm very excited to have with me today Lew Conner, a veteran of the customer community world. He is currently the executive director of the Higher Education User Group, a large independent user group of customers using Oracle and PeopleSoft higher education products. Welcome, Lew.
Thanks, Josh.
So I wanted to speak with you specifically because you not only run a very successful user group and have seen significant growth in that user group over the past several years, but I also wanted to talk to you because you've been involved in customer engagement for decades. How did you get involved in user communities?
It has. When I look back now, it has been nearly 30 years, I think, since the first time I had, or maybe 25 years. Essentially, back in the late 80s, I was a university registrar. And in those days, there was a company by the name of Information Associates, IA software, and they essentially did student systems for higher education. And as a registrar, my grades, admissions, financial aid were all done using the Information Associates software. And I became a member of one of the Student Records Advisory Group. And through that, also became a board member of a group that was called SISU, Student Information Systems Users, which is very similar to the group that I'm involved with right now as executive director of.
Okay. So people hear about user groups all the time, but on their face, people don't know that there are two different kinds of user groups. There are independent user groups, and that's where a lot of your background stems from. And then there are company-run user groups. Can you tell the folks listening to this or watching this video some of the differences between the two?
Yeah, I think from an independent standpoint, one of the things that sometimes you tend to get are the members feel because they're independent, they can offer a little bit more candor to the company, that they feel like they can speak their mind very freely because of the independency. There's fewer conflict of interest issues when the members themselves are paying for everything, or their universities are, and you don't have to rely on the vendor for direct funding or financial resources. From a company side, the independent user group, I think it's a benefit to them in many cases, because when they're up against in a sales cycle other companies that they're competing against that don't have the independent group, then sometimes I think they use that. And I know that Oracle does. They'll use that to say that, well, our groups are independent and we're willing to work with them. They're willing to work with us. The dependent group side, definitely there's a lower cost to the user group member with that, because there's some financial resources coming to the company. I think you get maybe a little bit more of a predefined executive buy-in from the company, which in turn means you may have a little bit more access as a user group to some of the company executives. As an independent group, we have to fight pretty hard to be sure that we have the right message and that we get the right players from the company to the table. Once you establish the fact that you're a credible group and that your input and advocacy to the company is helpful, it's not a major problem for the group to get the company execs. But I think that at the start, the dependent group probably has a little bit more access to begin with.
Okay, so it sounds like a company-run or dependent user group sometimes comes with some baggage as well, where the customer's not only interacting with the company through the user group, but they also have customer service tickets hanging out there, and they're also receiving marketing messages, whereas the user group, the independent user group, it really has a more streamlined mission, and the communication can be more focused.
Yeah, it's I think the point in that is that the independent user group establishes what their goals and missions are. The dependent group, the company establishes that. So it's with some buy-in and with some interaction from the members. But I can honestly say that when we sat down and created this group now 15, 16 years ago with PeopleSoft really wasn't at the table to determine what was going to be happening as far as the mission and the goals of the group.
Okay, and really it probably goes back to, or at least from my experience, it goes back to what works best for the organization and their customers. Sounds like both independent and dependent or company-run user groups have advantages and disadvantages, and it really depends on where the company is in their growth and how the types of engagement they want to have with their user community.
Yeah, and I would agree, and it kind of depends on the industry too. And quite honestly, while we are a group independent of Oracle has its own customer groups internally as well. So they have a few of their own user groups. Most of the people that sit on those are also our members. So you're going to see kind of a mix of both that'll happen out there for most companies that are out there.
Well, that's interesting that there is that cross-pollination of ideas and advocacy.
Right.
So let's back up for a second and talk about just the importance of a strong user group or strong user community, both to customers and to the company itself. What are some of the benefits that both groups see from having a strong user community?
Well, I think from a user standpoint, our organization has two primary purposes. It's education and advocacy. So if we can work with the company to fulfill those purposes for our members, then that's perfect. It allows us that opportunity to speak what's on our mind, to tell the company what the members feel like they need. In turn, the benefit to the company is they get fresh ideas, fresh product. They have a resource they can turn to basically at any given point in time. Now that we're global, it's pretty much 24/7 that's a representative could contact anybody from our organization for input. So the company benefits from that as well as the membership. The other side of it ends up being from an education standpoint. That's the advocacy side. The education standpoint, the members are able to train each other, but they also receive benefit like at conferences, regional conferences, webinars, where the company will come in and do some of the it's training, webinars. Just some of the education is done both by the company and by the member. So I think that's a benefit to both the company being able to promote the product without doing it in such a salesy way, and to the membership to receive more real-time information from the company. So those are two, from advocacy and education, those are two primary things that help both sides.
From the users or customers' perspective, is there a support element in there where if somebody's struggling to solve a problem in their jobs, can they reach out to the community and get a pretty quick response?
Yeah, and absolutely, that's the whole basis of the HUG community side. We have the forums are our primary area that we utilize to help each other. The networking, the education side of things, where we put out, I think, and I haven't really looked in the last probably year, but at least a year ago, the HUG itself puts out over 7 million emails during, I believe it's within a 1 month period of time. We have 16 different product areas, communities within the group, and at any given point in time, there'll be 4,000 to 5,000 different members on these, subscribed to these different groups. So when one email goes out asking, here's how do I do this type of thing on my implementation, I'm struggling, you get an immediate response generally. Anywhere from a dozen to 24 people will offer input right away. So yes, the forums, definitely there's all sorts of opportunities. not only to be reactive and ask a question, but when people are implementing and they come across things that are really slick, they're more than willing to get out there and share a little bit of code and share their ideas with the rest of the community.
The higher education user groups online community is known as one of the most active and valuable software user group communities out there. What do you think the secret to your success is?
Well, it's culture. It's the higher education culture is such that there's very little competitiveness when you're off the athletic field and when you're not competing against each other for grants and research. When you get beyond that, sometimes there's some competitiveness from the admission standpoint, but the reality is once you're beyond those areas, they share everything. They not only internally when our organization sharing how to do things, but if there's another vendor or any vendors that are out there and somebody's looking to procure software, they will certainly pick up the phone and ask questions of each other without any prompting whatsoever. So it's a culture of collaboration, and that's what really works very well with this industry. And some of the commercial industries, some of them it'll work very well. In others where it's highly competitive, it's hard for me to see that the CIO of General Motors might sit down with the CIO of Toyota and work together on how they can make things better. There's too much competitive market there. But again, in some cases, it does work very well. Higher ed, it's collaborative culture. That's really what does it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned the forums and online groups and listservs in your online community were really one of the most popular features. Are there any other features that are being used heavily in your online community, and which are the most important?
Well, I think two others jump out right away. One's targeted emails. If we as an organization have information that we want to get out to the membership, we're able to do that either through the forums or by using the targeted email engine and get a template that's consistent and a message that's consistent out to all the membership and focus only on those areas within the community that want to hear the message. So we don't have to send it out to our 22,000 members all at once. Occasionally we do that, but we can focus on the 3,000 or 4,000 members that are interested in the contributor relations product, or the 10,000 members that might span all of the campus community, which is the student system products. So the targeted email is one. I think the webinars that we've been doing recently is another. Being able to have an education series page and community there where people can get free access to webinars and learn, get a lot of information, a lot of training that's done through those areas.
So what I'm hearing is really providing value, providing helpful information, not marketing information, is important, as well as providing this information in a way where you segment it so people, you keep the value of your online community and of the user group high because you're segmenting the information and only giving people information that's relevant to them, and that's a way to keep people engaged, keep them from tuning you out.
Right. If you rather than do a blanket shotgun approach where you have message everybody, this allows us to probably send a lot more messages out, but they're sent to specific groups of population. It isn't like that we do 20 a day or anything. We're talking more like 20 a month that will go to different groups. And then there's some when we're starting to deal with the Alliance Conference, our event. Annually, or our regional conferences, regional conferences can go to the targeted area. Alliance Conference would go globally to everybody, so they know what's going on. Yep. So it's the targeted emails are a really strong tool.
That's good. That's good. I've always found that the way you can target or segment groups and emails has been pretty important to both companies and customers. So who in a company does a user group interact with the most? So who at Oracle, or not who specifically, but which groups have the most contact with user groups typically?
Well, the approach that the HUG takes, and I don't know if I explained, Higher Education User Group, HEUG, we pronounce it HUG. That's our acronym. The HUG takes is to try and engage at various levels. We look at things both strategically and tactically. So if you're looking on a day-to-day business standpoint, something that's tactical where a financial aid clerk is trying to input something and it's just not working, there's a tactical way of dealing with that. And what most of that will go through our product advisor groups. So that's what I mentioned earlier, we have 16 different product advisor groups that a strategist from Oracle sits on these groups. So there are anywhere from 6 to 9 members that are on the group. And so tactical issues will go to that group so they can work out. A lot of times that clerk is just doing something wrong and that goes to the forum. They come back with a response and it's taken care of. Other times it could be a product enhancement that needs to be done or a bug in the software. And that can go from a tactical standpoint to those product strategists from Oracle that are on the group. Sometimes the strategists do engage at a strategic level as well. They'll do the tactical side, but then when they were looking at what does higher ed need for a product 3 to 5 years out, they'll start to ask some of these targeted groups, product advisory groups, what do you think? What do you need 3 or 5 years from now? So they'll engage both at that level, both from a strategy and tactical side.
That information, it sounds invaluable to Oracle. I mean, to have access to that feedback, in a consistent fashion.
Yeah, it really is a two-way street. The good news about Oracle is they definitely listen and they come to the table. They have strategists there, and the strategists are on the forums as well. They engage with the 6 to 9 member product advisory group, but they're also out there with the 4,000 people on the forum. And if they can offer input, they can solve some issues as well. So yes, it's beneficial to the members, but it's a gold mine from Oracle standpoint as far as the feedback that they get. The other area that we engage in when we're trying to do multiple areas is with the board of directors of the HUG engages more at the executive level with Oracle. So we just came off of our summer board meeting, and we had Paco Arbaran and Cliff Godwin, which are 2 senior vice presidents for Oracle, were in the room. They spent a full afternoon with us, and it was a roundtable. They were there as well as a couple of other people, Gretchen Alakarn and Mark Armstrong, 2 other vice presidents, and it was just a discussion. No PowerPoints involved. It was a discussion with the board. They were able to ask us questions. We were able to offer them opinions, seek direction on where the company's headed in different areas. So at executive level, the board will engage a lot higher. So it's multiple facets that you try and engage with them. And Oracle's done a really good job coming to the table when we ask.
That's great. It sounds like a real win-win. And
yeah, it has. From our standpoint, it has.
So you've seen a lot of user groups over the years, Oracle, PeopleSoft, and several other software solutions. What are, you've listed some, but what are some of the common components of a successful user group, both structurally? You said that there's a board, there's engagement at the executive level, there's tactical stuff, and then also activity-wise, what type of activities, events, education series would you recommend that companies look into?
Well, I think you're right. There's a variety of different things. It all goes back to what services you're going to provide your members. The HUG itself there was no charge up until about 3 years ago to be a member of the HUG. And so all of our members, if you bought an Oracle application software in higher ed, then you automatically were eligible to become a member. And you got all the benefits of the forums, all the networking. We switched to a model just a few years ago that does offer paid membership, and it was taken up by nearly 90% of our membership just immediately. So we had been providing value for a number of years already. But since then, we start to think, okay, we're charging member services now, so we want to be sure that we're doing a good job of providing services to the members. So we focus on a variety of areas. Education, again, going back to education advocacy is the 2 primary missions. Making sure we provide valuable conferences to the members. We've had the Alliance Conference now for 15 years, and we have about 4,000 attendees at that conference that come from, I believe this year was 33 different countries around the world. And we do a very, very good job of providing content at that and opportunities for networking amongst the members. So being sure that I think that's one of the key components is being sure you have an event that you can get people face to face, because as much online traffic that we do, it's extremely important to be sure that you still meet face to face at some points in time. We've also expanded that to regional groups. So we do now, I believe it's 10. We'll have 10 regional events this year, 6 in the United States and 3 in other parts of the world. We'll have one in London, we've done for 6 years in Australia, and now this year we're going to have another one in Hong Kong. So being sure that you have events for if you're global for your international members, as well as regional events for those members who wouldn't be able to make it to the larger Alliance Conference, the larger national event. So I think that's a key component of success, being sure that something is set up from an advocacy standpoint, and being sure that you have power members, power users, if you're a user group, that are really responsible for those areas. So if you're, in our case, there's a variety of different products that Oracle sells from an application standpoint, whether it's financials or human resource or student system. We have experts and advocates that really champion these different areas that are members, and making sure you have somebody that really steps up to do that is very critical, so that you don't say that you have a pillar structure or an advisory group category and there's nobody really there promoting it. You have to have somebody out there putting content out onto the forums, making sure that there's something compelling for people to listen to and to seek help with. So the advocacy side, and then networking, being sure that you set up opportunities for people to network, whether it's online or, again, at the various conferences. And even going beyond your own conferences, there are times that we make sure that we engage with some of our peer user groups from Oracle, where we will go to their conference. We'll go to the ODTUG, Oracle Developer and Tools User Group, because there are some overlap with some of our developers that are going to be there. So we'll make sure that we're at some of those groups as well. So providing, again, the valuable content, making sure that there's a champion that's involved, be sure there's a lot of networking opportunities as well. All of those are really critical to making sure it works. Organizationally, you can have a variety of different structures as far as who's going to govern the organization. You just got to make sure that they are again, very, very, they buy into the process and the organization.
I think that's, one of the things you touched on is, the importance of the online community, and one of the things that fuels a successful online community is that content plan, that educational, helpful content being pumped into the community consistently every day, every other day. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, that's critical, and it really, from our group, because we're so collaborative, it didn't take a long time for that to happen, but once it happened, it snowballs, and it's such a powerful tool when you have that. In our case, these product advisory groups I mentioned earlier, the 6 to 9 members, those are the champions. Those are the people that are out there putting content out there or responding to information within 24 hours, and that's just critical. Once you get that established and people see that it's worthwhile and there's value to going to it, then they go.
And that's impressive. So what are some of the biggest challenges of managing a large user group?
Right now, one of the challenges that we're having is making sure we have a large number of people who would like to volunteer. We need to create opportunities for people to volunteer, to be able to get out and they're very much engaged. We have nearly 200 people that are engaged for those product advisory groups. That's very specific. We go beyond that, and then the opportunities for involvement diminish to a degree. And so trying to create, think out of the box and create areas that can be beneficial to the members, to offer services to the members, and create opportunities for volunteers as well. I think that's one of my biggest challenges right now, making sure that there's enough work for everybody to do. There certainly is, but there's a lot of interest. As I said, we had 22,000 members online, so there's a lot of people that want to engage and want to be involved.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, but it's a credit to the value that you've been providing for years and years and years.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. The other thing this isn't necessarily a challenge, but it's one of those things that you have to really put your finger on, make sure that it's continues to work, and that's being sure that the executive sponsors from the membership community remain engaged. Trying to set up. Right now we do have an executive group that we do an executive forum every year. We have an executive group that offers input as well. But being sure that those executives who normally aren't going to get out of the office to go to our conference know why their staff are going and know the value of it. So that sometimes is a challenge because they're such busy individuals on their campus.
That's a good point, and that's one of those hidden gems that come out of conversations like this that people can really take away to make sure that that's shored up on their campus. So, a couple more questions. What advice do you have for companies and independent user groups for starting or strengthening their user group? What are some small steps that they can take?
It still goes back to being sure you find the right individuals who understand the big picture. At times when you have the candid advocate, sometimes their focus is very narrow-minded on their own campus or their own individual situation. Being sure that the company or the members that are starting this out go beyond any type of bickering with the company and try to come up with a partnership, making sure they have a broad sense of how this works for all of the members, not just their own situation. So I think that's one of the first steps, is identifying that team of people who can do that. We're doing that a lot globally. I mean, we've been around for 16 years as an organization. The last 4 or 5, we've started to expand globally. So we're creating those types of communities and organizing committees in what we call EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, in Latin America and Brazil now, in Asia now, and being sure that we get the right people that are going to be able to take this and move it along with the broad picture in place. I think that's what's critical. And then just making sure that there are consistent opportunities to engage. As a board of directors, we meet on a conference call once a month, but each of the board members also has a product advisory call they're on. So generally once a week there's some call that people have to be on that they're trying to be engaged in. And it's not like a 4-hour call, it's a 30-minute call, maybe an hour call each week. Being sure that kind of commitment is there all the way through.
I think that's important. Those are some really tangible tips. And so if you were speaking to a room full of company executives on the importance of a strong user community and engaging their user community, and whether it's a company-run user group or an independent user group, what is the one takeaway that you'd want them to come out of the room with regarding the importance of engaging their user community?
I think I would want them to come out with the idea that a partnership can be formed with the members, a partnership that's can be very candid, and if they can allow an atmosphere, allow the climate for the user group to be able to speak their mind, not in the public forum, but be able to speak their mind candidly and appropriately, then the value from the advice, the advocacy that they get is phenomenal. It just goes so far in so many different ways.
I couldn't agree with you more from my experience. Lew, I want to thank you for sharing your insight and experience today. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Very welcome. I appreciate the opportunity.
And before we go, where can people find you on the web?
If you look, the best way for me, if you go to Hug Online, it's www.heeug.org. There'll be information that's there. We do have a public and a private site, so there's a lot of public information that's out there. If you click on the link to the current board of directors, my information is there. Otherwise, lconner@heeug.org is my email address. Feel free to contact me there.
Great. I think this conversation, you brought up a lot of really good things for both companies and for customers to think about in terms of getting involved in their user group or starting a user group. And you got in some tangible, and you got into the trenches some with some really valuable information. So as always, you can find all of the ProCommunity episodes at socius.com. You can also subscribe to the show in an audio podcast format on iTunes, where 5-star reviews or 5-star ratings and positive reviews are appreciated if you like what you heard today. Lew, I want to thank you once again and have a great day.
Thanks, Josh. You're very welcome.